Welcome everybody to the first user group of 2022 as we continue to push forward towards our transition, go live May 2nd. We have lots of information to share with you of what you can expect in the months ahead leading up to our go live date. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Shane so he can share all of that great information with you. We will have Q&A that will follow, and we will use, as we have with other user groups. So if this is your first time, you're hearing this for the first time, we will use the Q&A feature, which is at the bottom or top, depending on how your navigation is set. And you can click on that Q&A and you can type in a question. Because we might answer your question ahead of us getting to the Q&A segment, I would ask you to maybe just pay attention to the content and maybe save that question to see if we answer it along the way with the information that's being shared. Then once we get to that Q&A segment, if your question is still outstanding, please feel free to type in and share it at that time so that our lovely group of panelists can answer and address those questions then. There is a playback of the meeting that will get posted on the Transition Newsroom, as well as it will get emailed out to our buyer user group members. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Shane so he can get us started with all of that great information.
Great. Thank you, Kim. And Happy New Year, everyone. So glad to see so many attendees today and hopefully have some good information for you. Really going to be very focused today for this particular user group on the updates and the change date and what that means, what the next several months are going to look like. So we really want to keep our focus on that today. Also, based on that content and based on the fact that we're, kind of talking about a new roadmap and, what the dates and milestones and some things that we're doing are going to look like, really want that to be our focus as much as we possibly can for the Q&A today. And also looking to end up at the top of the hour. We've done did some long user groups going back into 2021 as we thought we were going to go live January 3rd. And, did some hour and a half ones. We were really digging into functionality. Really want to try to end at the top of the hour, end at 11 today. And again, kind of stay focused on this updated roadmap. And that's what the content I have for you today. And then, once we get through the content, certainly we should have plenty of time for questions, even if we end at the top of the hour today. So let's dig in and we'll slide over here to kind of our agenda. We're going to look at those milestones, or basically kind of our project schedule. We're going to talk a little bit about conversion and a couple little nuance and changes in that conversion area. Talk about training and this additional time and the ability for us to make some adjustments to training, some enhancements and improvements, which is good. And then, as mentioned, we're going to answer your questions. How did we end up where we were? I hope everybody received the emails that went out when we did move the date from January 3rd to May 2nd. It was a little bit of a confluence of a lot of things that got us to where we are, where we did the extension. I think certainly that was a relief, not only to our internal staff, but a lot of feedback from all you guys out there in the field, as far as allowing some more family time and maybe even some vacation time over the holidays, where we weren't stressed about doing a cutover to a new system that would have actually happened on Monday. But it was a confluence of several things. Some of it was feedback from you guys, needed more time for training, needed more time for testing. Some of it was our own internal analysis here, where we certainly identified some areas that we felt like we were behind in. And I can tell you, going back into the fall, September, October timeframe, I didn't think there was any chance that January 3rd was going to move, just based on, the way our contract was constructed and our agreements with various software providers on our existing system. And come to find out, we were able to get an extension and had an ability to extend out for a few months. And, again, kind of the confluence of events, some things we needed to do, some feedback from you guys in the field, we were able to do that. So I also know certainly moving it to May 2nd puts us in that fabulous some of you have already expressed concerns about this, that fabulous year-end spend cycle. We hear you and we understand that. I don't know that anytime you make a transition of this nature, that there's any great time to do it. But certainly we hope this extra time, both from a training perspective, system understanding perspective, and then our own ability, working with our partner in CGI to clean up and refine some things on our end, that it will be a much, much, much smoother transition, even in the May timeframe, than we would have experienced if we would have gone on Monday, on January 3rd. So there's not one thing that you could point to that caused us to do this. It was just like anything, and we had a lot of meetings, and a lot of our leaders, all the way up through our DGS director's office, kind of putting a lot of heads together to make the decision that we did. And certainly we're going to use this time aggressively to allow for more training, allow for more testing, allow for more fixes and improvements in the system. So we are certainly working. Maybe that's the unfortunate thing for a lot of you, and I know certainly for the DGS team, the work really hasn't slowed down from that perspective. I mean, yes, we were able to take a little bit of time around the holidays that we didn't think we would have, but we have been pedal to the metal even throughout some of the holiday period, using this time wisely. And that would be the one piece that maybe wasn't a benefit, because instead of dealing with the new system this week, we're going to continue to grind and get this transition ready. So it's a lot of work still to get us into May. But again, we're going to use that time wisely and hopefully make this as smooth a transition as possible. So I'm going to slip on, Kim mentioning that she was the old magical 5-0. Yours truly has to put on the reading glasses here so that I can read my notes, so that I can talk to you properly from my presentation here. So let's dig right in and get into the milestone review, which is the first piece of the agenda. And let's just talk about some things. And hey, what are we doing? These are some of these adjusted milestones. All right, so great, Shane and DGS. You extended the go live date. You're now saying May 2nd. I've seen the email. What are you doing? So this is what we're doing. Let's go through it. Critical fixes and internal testing. And this is really what we started once we made that decision back in December that we were going to extend out. We just needed some more time. We needed some more time and to really focus on some critical things that weren't happening, and really kind of turn internally and look at this. I've been saying it to my team. We're looking at this. We didn't think this could happen, an extension of this nature. We really built our entire schedule around January 3rd. We're looking at this as a gift. Silver lining here. Hey, we didn't make that transition date, or we weren't comfortable making that transition date, but boy, we lucked out that we were able to do what we were doing and do this type of extension, and let's use that time wisely. So critical fixes and internal testing now through February 4th is roughly the date where we're really going to be turning ourselves internal and just focusing on improving all sorts of areas. The big ones, integration, interface, our data warehouse, our reporting functions, and even the application itself. And when I say application, that's the area that a lot of you and your end users logging into, sourcing, requisitioning, ordering, receiving, catalogs, all that fun stuff. So really turning ourselves and having another good long period, because considering, we started back in December, once we knew the dates were adjusted, and really getting fixes in, doing weekly builds, weekly releases to get a lot of items corrected. Really what we hope buying, this time has bought us this gift that we've been given to give us that extra time to clean some of these things up. Some additional bullet points here that certainly doesn't mean external testing that we're not doing that anymore. For those of you that have been involved with external testing, you can certainly still continue to run your business scenarios, look at the system, get more comfortable if you have access to UAT, and digging in there and running through your business scenarios and stuff like that. But everybody needs to know that really we're pointing ourselves towards that February date where we're going to hopefully make a lot of changes based on the feedback we've received, issues and changes we'd like to make through that February 4th, 2022 date here. So a little under a month at this point, and we've been well underway. We've already had a lot of new items come in. Our focus, and again, doesn't mean that we're going to take anything away from you, but then our focus starting February 7th will be back on external testing and making sure we're re-engaging you guys. And, towards the end of January, you're going to hear from us, depending on what role you're in or what you're doing, or your technical folks, if it happens to be integration interface, and really making sure all of those items to get that focus for about a month, February through that first part of March, on external testing, and making sure you guys get a chance to run through all this stuff again, see the changes we've made. In some areas, testing hadn't even really started in that early part of December for some of our integration and a few of the interface things we have. So that's going to give you and your organization time to really have a good solid month to do that testing, to verify those processes, verify your integrations, verify your interface. Hopefully there'll be some reporting will be starting to come online at that point, and any changes we've made in the application. So again, that's a real focus there, that external testing. We would like to then, once we're all of this testing, and while you guys are doing your testing, we're also going to be there from an internal team, continuing to verify issues and work with CGI on any things that are coming in from the external testing that's happening, and any additional cleanup we need to do. That last bullet there, the testing cycle wrap up, March 7th through April 8th. We'll do some additional drops, some additional fixes, just kind of pushing those last few items in March 7th through March 18th. So that gives us a few weeks to push any additional fixes in that we find during that February period, as we're going into March. And then really a final testing period, March 21st through April 8th. And really, you'll see this in a minute, but really that April 8th date, we want to be real solid going into April 8th and saying, this is what the system's going to look like on day one. This is how things are going to operate. Like any software system, for those of you that spend a lot of time in the existing EVA module, I could go and show you our ticketing system for the existing module. There's always something going on. There's always a change. There's always a request. There's always a bug. It's just the nature of software. But certainly going into April 8th saying, this is what it's going to look like. This is how we want to have that system locked down and ready to go for April 8th. Now, does that mean, once we freeze things, and I'll show you that list here in a minute, on April 8th, and we go live May 2nd, that after May 2nd, we're not going to make changes and do fixes? No. But, truly pointing ourselves to that April 8th date, that we're locked in and that we know what we're going to get day one, and that we're in a nice, stable environment come that April 8th date. So that's really, these are your big hit milestones, and what's happening. What are you doing to the system? This is what we're working on, and this is what we're driving towards. Shifting to my next slide here from some additional milestones with not as much detail underneath them. And some of these will be familiar to you because you can reference them back to dates we had in the past. We had the old date for this first bullet for pausing reference data updates. It used to be December 1st. Now we've pushed that out to April 1st based on our new go live date. And reference data updates, addresses, accounting, users, if we want to make any changes to, like, let's say you wanted to tweak an approval flow, things like that, they need to be long done and finished by April 1st, right? That doesn't mean we get the request April 1st. We really want to have things wrapped up and really pause as many updates as possible by April 1st of this new year. Very similar to the discussion we had about the December 1st date when we had the January 3rd go live. Again, it's worth saying and always worth repeating. We absolutely understand that users leave. You need to deactivate a user, add a user. There's certainly emergency and things you just have to do. But in the grand scheme of things, we'd really like to look at pausing as many updates as we can by April 1st. To get this out on everybody's calendars, and really, if you tie it back to the testing wrap up from the last slide, we will need to and are committed to making our go, no go decision for the May migration on April 8th. So that is really the date we are pointed to. Go, no go decision on April 8th. So everybody, both internally and externally, by April 8th of this year, everybody should know, are we going or not? And I don't know, I almost feel terrible that we didn't do that before, that we didn't really have that go date pointed to, but we really had a very, very incredibly compacted schedule when we were shooting towards January 3rd. And we felt like when we were kind of doing some replanning and getting our project plan and our milestones and our roadmap laid out for this new date in May, making sure that date was public. So that go, no go date, April 8th, that's when and it could be earlier. We could do a go decision much earlier than that, depending on how we feel about the system. But that's certainly the deadline for that, so that we can, if we have to make any additional announcements, and hopefully it's all positive, that it's going to be, hey, we're going, everybody will know April 8th if that is happening or not. Some updates that have happened, and you're going to get a follow-up message to this. I also know the transition newsroom has been updated with all of these dates and all of this guidance. So not only will this session be recorded so that you can rewatch this user group session, but you can still, that transition newsroom is still there off of the EVA homepage. And all of this great guidance and dates have been updated to reflect the new go live date. But certainly one of the things, electronic responses for sourcing and contracting will be disabled April 15th. If you remember, the old date was December 15th. So we've backed all that out so you guys can do your business in the sourcing and contracting module. Our suppliers can still submit those electronic responses right up through that April 15th date. And then at that point, as we start to get near the May 2nd go live date, we'll do the disabling again. We're getting all those messages updated in the EVA system to make sure the messages are reading properly and we got the dates right throughout the system. But again, new date there, April 15th. Kind of a new thing that's sliding in there that I will tell you, in our more compressed schedule when we were shooting for January 3rd wasn't there, but this also ties very closely to kind of the wrap up of our testing and also the go, no go decision drop dead date. We are going to go into a steady state in our UAT environment from April 11th right through the transition start on the 28th. So we're going to have an environment in UAT where no changes are going to be made as far as software migrations or software drops to make any changes to the software. And that's about a 3-week period where we will be in a state of just letting the environment be what it's going to be. And again, tied absolutely with that go, no go decision. So let's do the positive path on here. We say go, that the May 2nd date is going to hold for the go live. Going into that next week, UAT doesn't mean you're going to lose access. You can absolutely get in there and do transactions and continue to run through your business processes, but we're not going to be making any adjustments. And that'll allow us and our CGI team and our team to make sure our day-to-day operational functions are running. The data that's going into the system is going to the right places. Our monitoring jobs are working, and all the back end operational things we do, we'll get several weeks there of no programmatic changes to just run basically a dry run of that production system, right? To really have a feeling there for a couple of weeks of a system that's not going through the massive changes that you go through in a transition. So a steady state there for a few weeks. And then our updated dates for transition, it will start at noon on the 28th, which is a Thursday. So from noon that Thursday, all day Friday through the weekend, and then back up on Monday morning, bright and early, May 2nd for go live in the new system. So right now, that's what we're looking at. That's what we're tracking to as far as the software and the system, and having EVA ready to rock and roll on Monday, May 2nd. So very excited about this new plan. Lots of work, as I mentioned earlier, to do to get ourselves into that good condition so that we're ready to roll. But certainly we're looking at this as a gift and looking at this as an opportunity to get EVA in just that much better condition and get some things up and running and leave you guys a reasonable amount of time to do your testing and verification going into that May 2nd date. Let's talk about another area where we're pretty excited, and something that we just weren't going to have the ability to do. And I want to show you this slide, and it's really conversion in and of itself. And conversion is all about taking our existing environment and moving that data into the new environment. So taking existing EVA and moving it into the new EVA. Well, there's a whole, much like UAT, which a lot of you are familiar with. I know my team is. Very much like our user acceptance testing area, there is a conversion environment, and we're taking data from the existing EVA system, and we're running all of this programmatic work and all these things to convert all of that information into this environment. And we're talking about everything. So one thing that's really exciting is right around the middle of January, Logi is our report tool, report and resource center. The environment, there could be some Logi development that's actually pointed at the conversion environment. And what makes that exciting? The conversion environment would include the new system and new data plus existing data, right? Or from our data that's from the existing module that's converted into the new system. So that ability to have, starting as early as January 17th, that ability to look at and develop reports where you have a mix of data from the old and the new system. So very exciting from that perspective for us to verify our reports. Now that's going to take, just because I have that early date on there, January 17th, doesn't mean reports are going to be ready the 18th. That's kind of talking about what we're going to be doing for the next several months to get ourselves ready there, but we're very excited about that. Starting in February and running for several weeks into March, we'll have the chance to do internal verification of the conversion environment. And really, to translate that to you guys, it's like a mock production environment. It's going to have all the users, all the approval flow, all the data, all the suppliers. So you can get in there. For those of you that have been in UAT, there's a little bit of manual intervention that needs to be done to make certain things work. That's not going to be the case in the conversion environment. It really is a dry run environment where you're really getting a chance to go in there and what is production going to look like on day one. And that's what the conversion environment does for us. So we'll do some internal verification of that environment there for a few weeks. And then this is the exciting thing. We'll have the ability to do external verification. Now I want to be very clear when I say verification. This is a chance for you to go in, check things out, get a look and feel for it. Certainly, if you identify an issue, you can report it out. But it's verifying, not testing. UAT is where we're testing and trying to break things and trying to say, okay, I'd like this to be here, this isn't working properly. Verification, we're truly hoping by the time we hit that March 14th timeframe with you guys from an external perspective, is that you're going to be going in and saying, yep, this is how things should run, this is what I'm expecting, and that chance to do that verification. So stay tuned for details on that and your ability to go in to that conversion environment and do external verification. So very excited about that. The other cool thing about the conversion environment is that it allows our CGI team and our team, they're constantly doing dry runs into that environment, to make sure that they can get the conversion correctly, data is coming over properly, and that the environment looks like what we want it to look like when we go live in May. And that happens a lot. You don't just do that once. That's good. They blow the environment out and they do it again. They do it again. So there's lots of changes and lots of moving pieces and parts to that. But certainly something that really wasn't going to be available on our old timeline, at least externally. And now we have that ability to make it available from an external perspective because of the time we have. So very excited about that. Shifting into our last slide here before we go into questions and answers, talk about how does this impact training? How does this impact training? So good news for us is this gives our training team a lot of time to do module updates. For those of you that have gone through any of the training program at all, you'll notice that sometimes if you were in UAT, because UAT was constantly changing and being updated and new things were happening and we were moving things around and updating things, that sometimes what you were being trained on didn't necessarily reflect what was in the environment that was eventually going to go to production. Well, the good news for this is we are making major updates across all of our training modules, starting back in December through the end of February. And according to, for those of you that know Sarah Lewis, who had been kind of our lead on our side, lots of people have been involved with training, but certainly from our side, Sarah Lewis was our lead. We were talking yesterday and she says, oh, there's a lot to do, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That means there's lots of good updates coming in. The collection and prioritization of those updates has been completed. That really finished back in December. I know Sarah spent some time even over the holidays going through all that feedback and is working with our various training teams to get that feedback incorporated into the training modules and doing those updates. Now, much like testing, if you're going through training, and I know some messages have gone out from the training team, but again, it's worth repeating. The learning journeys are still available. So if you really want to get in there, and I'm telling you, there is value to it, especially if you're not familiar with the system. While it may not be a perfect mirror image of what the production environment is going to look like, it certainly gives you exposure to the new EVA. It gives you exposure to that new platform. It teaches you the navigation. It teaches you some of the critical steps. So don't think if you've gone through the training program and finished things that you've wasted your time. I still think there's a lot of value. However, we will be doing kind of a relaunch of the buyer training in March. So getting all those updates in, and then you'll start hearing from the training team, hey, the learning journeys have been updated. Get in there. You got 60 days, to get through these things based again on your role, because if you're remembering, they're all role-based learning journeys where it's, based on what you do. Certainly you could go through everything that's available to you, but you have the ability to focus on those areas that are important to you and important to your job, or for your staff, important to what they do for you. And we really will be doing additional messaging and just kind of saying, hey, that's a relaunch. Kind of tied to that, our supplier community that really, quite honestly, bought us this extension. The supplier training was really going to be coming out with just a few weeks to go in December. And certainly this buys us some great time with our supplier community to just delay the launch of that until March this coming March and get that information out to our suppliers and get those training materials available to that supplier community as well, and giving them a more reasonable time frame for our suppliers that are engaged and want to go through that training. And going ahead and launching that in March as well. From a communication perspective, all trainers have been notified of the updated schedule. That did happen before the holidays, but I thought it was worth having this slide on here and just kind of rehashing from a training perspective what was going to happen. So that is a kind of a quick overview through a few slides of what this new roadmap is going to look like. Again, really today's user group staying focused on this new schedule. We'll come back in February, March, and April and have either one or, if we need to, multiple user groups as we dig back into testing and functionality and things like that. So, with that being said, you get your obligatory, well, here it goes. Kind of froze on me there a little bit. You get your obligatory, I hope I'm still connected. There we go. I had a little delay sliding over. I hope I didn't lose my connection. I hope you guys.
You were there. You're good. You're good.
Okay. Well, something's going on with my PowerPoint for sure. So, but there's your obligatory question slide. So I'll go ahead. I'll stop sharing and move out of that and just kind of go into Q&A here and start taking some questions. So let me just kind of start to dig through them here, and I'll read them out. And I think I'll need Lisa here for this first one if she's paying attention, which she is. She's smiling. And then Barb's going to get the next one, her favorite topic. So let me start. Good morning and Happy New Year to Dean Stubbs. There was a discussion in December about making a buyer UAT tester version of the list of all issues on the EVA transition testing page for script testers currently. Is this still in the works?
Script testers actually do have access to that, but that is, our scripted testers are DGS folks. So that they have that information. As far as our clients and making that available publicly to everyone, there is so much movement going on with the releases that we have coming in and that list growing. I feel like if we were to publish it, it would be out of date just as quickly as it came in. And honestly, that list oftentimes is not translated to or entered in a way that is maybe it's in a different language than what our end user community is accustomed to. Once we get closer to the go live date, we definitely will be sharing out some of the known issues with people. That's something that we're tracking towards. And that was really our intent in December too. We want you to know what you're coming into once we go live. But since we're still in a really agile movement right now, I don't think that will be something that we'll be publishing at this point in time. Later on, maybe closer to April or February, when we have all of our releases into UAT.
And that's a great point. As mentioned in my slides, we're spending January through that early February date really cleaning up a lot of stuff. So posting a list now for something that's likely going to be resolved in February, let's just get it resolved in February and see where we are. So great point, Lisa, and thank you. So Happy New Year to Missy Neal, and I'm going to have Barb come in. I can answer the first part, and then Barb and I can kind of tag team on the explanation piece. Missy Neal says, is VBO buyer disabled? The answer to that is yes. Yes, it is disabled. So that's the quick answer. And Barb, I don't know. I know this has been a hot topic for you and your team, and I'll let you add in anything else you'd like to add in.
I'll just say what Jane said. Yes, VBO buyer is disabled. However, we will, if you have not been trained on how to publicly post using the sourcing tool and issue your solicitations that way, certainly reach out to your account executive. Kim put the link actually to find my account executive in the chat earlier. If you do not know who your account executive is and you cannot find them, you may always reach out to me, of course. and we'll get you set up so that you can get trained. We will walk you through your first posting, your third posting, whatever you need. We will walk you through not only posting and issuing a solicitation, but evaluating if you're going to allow electronic responses and all of that. So it's all about the good data and being able to track your procurement all the way through, and providing transparency to the public, contract management. It's end to end, and the sooner you get in there and become familiar with everything, the better off you'll be. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Barb. Thank you. Thank you. And I know that's a big topic for Barb and Kelly and her team. And I know her PCR and account executive. The dog got in the shot. PCR and account executive team. And as they're talking to a lot of you guys in groups or individually, and we appreciate all their support. I'll tag on the VBO, and Lisa turned her camera off. I'll tag on the the back end of that is, we did deactivate VBO buyer. It's been, we've kind of crossed the bridge. Let's point towards the new tool is some of the attitude there as well. And as Barb mentioned, from a transparency perspective, and trust me, you'll be so much better prepared, and you're going to love the new tool. I think from a sourcing perspective, there's some not too difficult paths in that new tool once you make that move. So Dean Stubbs again has another question here. In the unlikely event, I like the way you wrote that, Dean. In the unlikely event, a no-go decision is made on or before April 8th, how far out could the updated go-live date be pushed to? I'll be quite honest with you, we don't know. It was a very fast-moving situation where we did the extension that we did out to May. So at this point, I wouldn't have a vision on that. Part of the reason why when we redid the roadmap and really the go date in April 8th is a deadline. We could make that decision much earlier. Now, again, I love the word in the unlikely event, but hopefully the likely event is that even earlier than that, by the end of March, first part of April, middle of March, we're going, oh, we're good. We're going to be able to tell by then we're ready to roll. But yes, Barb, go ahead.
I have a feeling I know where Dean is headed with his question, and I would say we will avoid, in the unlikely event, we would avoid fiscal year-end transition. So
you're very right about that. Thank you for getting yes, we wouldn't do it like July 1st or June 30th or something like that. We would push out to a more reasonable time frame there for sure. So yes, thank you, Barb. That's why we have a panelist, a nice panel helping here. Lisa would actually like to answer the next question from Angelica Babb.
So the next question is about electronic responses. VDOT's definitely been one of the largest organizations that, one, issue solicitations in EVA, but two, they receive so many electronic responses within the tool. It's amazing. The default should be, to my knowledge, everything has been flipped back and extended to the 15th so that way any new solicitations can receive electronic responses. If you are having issues with that, I encourage you to reach out to EVA customer care, and we can make sure that look at your specific solicitation and see if there is an issue for that. But to my knowledge, all of that's been turned back on, and suppliers should be able to issue responses to any of your published solicitations.
Cool. Thanks, Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. Precious Anderson, Happy New Year. Will these changes give us the ability to complete change orders on converted purchase orders? No, that doesn't change what happens in conversion. There's no magic wand, that was going to fix a converted transaction and what we have to do when we go to the new system. So the change order scenarios and all the things that we were going to deal with January 3rd, that's kind of the same guidance. And again, in the transition newsroom, Barb and her team put together some great guidance, not only on solicitations, but also on the change order process. And those have all been updated with the new dates, and the guidance on how you need to deal with that remains the same. So great question, Precious, but no changes outside of the dates moving. And that, again, doesn't get into timing or there's something wrong. That is all about moving data between two different systems and the impacts it has. And this was the safest path when you're moving data like that between two different systems and who's the source of truth in the two systems. So it tends to be relatively common for a change as major as what we're making between two different software systems. So good stuff there. Suzanne Rubenstein, and I might need clarification on this one. Do individual referees, I don't know, have to register for EVA now? The state of Virginia is requiring it, but we can pay them there.
That's a Barb question, not it.
I'm not exactly sure. Well, we don't pay unless you use a P card. We don't, EVA's not a payment system. So
yeah, I'm not sure what the actual question is either, unless I think, Suzanne, probably the best thing is if you certainly reach out to me or reach out to your account executive, and we'll help you navigate whatever the real issue is, because certainly they can, those individual referees can register in EVA, but I think in the past, referees have traditionally, at least in my higher ed experience, they were paid either through local funds or to their to like the referees association, but I don't know if that's answering your question. So reach out to us and we'll talk about it.
Great, thanks, Barb. James Fisk, Happy New Year. When will the EVA export file be available to agencies for integration or interface testing? Again, semantics on the word there. How will it be sent out? Looking like February for that. That's one of the areas that we're fixing up. Some of our data exchange things. I would imagine February, you'll get a communication from our technical team, or certainly from our team, when those things are ready for you guys to test. So it's looking like that, first part of February, you'll be ready to go. And then you'll have that stretch of time from February, quite honestly, through the end of March to do that testing. But again, that's one of the areas that's in getting fixed up, cleaned up, and should be ready about that time. So, that information should be coming out then. So thank you, James. Great question. Precious Anderson again. Will all of the buyer reports be available after go live? See, so you put after go live in there. So yes, yes. Our plan is to have all of our reports, including additional ones, throughout this entire process available. Now, on day one go live, we have done some report prioritization. Our plan is to have a large percentage of our reports available. There'll be some communications around that. Sitting here on January 6th, I think my impression is we'll have a lot of opportunity to have a large majority of our reporting available and ready to go. And particularly some of the critical ones that you'll need for year end, right? PO and receiving reports and things like that. Those things will be ready to roll. Those are going to be critical for us being ready to roll. As we get closer to the May date, we'll be able to give you an idea of what that's going to look like. I know our programmers are working right now on reports and getting those things cleaned up and getting them ready to roll. And hopefully even in the February, March timeframe, we'll have a chance to test some of it. So again, as we get closer to the May date, we'll be able to tell you what's going to be available, what's not going to be available. And I'm hoping it's a very small list, if any at all, of what's not going to be available. But stay tuned on that one. So great question. Next question from Amanda Kennedy. Happy New Year, Amanda. Will agency security folks get a chance to train and test with data management and user management prior to go live? Is there an estimate of when that can occur? Yes. Yes. This is a really big deal for us. It's one of the things that we were scrapping going into the January 3rd date where we were not going to roll out any of the system security to our entities like we have done for years and years and years. And this extended date is going to give us the opportunity to get that program figured out, get the training figured out around that, and then roll that out to our agency security officers. So that is one of the things with this additional time that we are very excited about. My estimate on that of when that stuff will be ready, we'll have a better idea that first part of February as we are going to be meeting the end of this week into next week and starting to get our plans together and how we're going to approach that. So we are very excited about that. I can tell you, I've mentioned them a couple of times. Barb and her team are very excited about that's getting decentralized and heading back out to you guys so you can control that. But that is one of the good news things. So again, stay tuned for the dates on that. There should be more information about that in the first part of February of this year. So thank you, Amanda. And then the next question from, I hope it's just pronounced Donna back. Donna, if I messed up your name, I'm sorry. Happy New Year though to you, Donna. And Lisa would like to take this one.
So I reached out to Donna and thank you for giving some clarification. She's talking specifically about the integration that they have where VDOT actually consumes the bid tab from EVA for all of the electronic responses that they receive. And that's what she's asking about is when they will be able to start that testing. And Shane, I do not have that calendar timeframe in front of me. I know you said integration was February. Was the sourcing, I went out and looked at, I'm looking at the
yes.
Sourcing February.
Yes, that's February as well. The sourcing integration that VDOT's the primary user of that. Sales job here. There's an ability to do some integration around sourcing. Yes, February. Absolutely. Okay. February for that.
And we will definitely be reaching out and working. We'll probably, how that process works, Donna, just so you have a little bit of insight, is we do work directly with your integration, your IT folks directly, and then they pull in the client, the end users at VDOT to come in and support some of that testing too. So maybe a little bit longer because we want to make sure the technical infrastructure is set up and secure before pulling in end users for testing too.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. Thank you, Donna, as well. Happy New Year, Tony Jordan. Will you let us know if the go decision is made early? Yes, we absolutely would. If we settle on something and we say, you know, go, and we know it's a go, and we make it at a leadership level, we will absolutely let everybody know the date is firm. And then Tony adds in, I'm a little hesitant to get our users started on training again because if the date moves and, you know, wanting to make sure that we're confident. We hear you, Tony. Absolutely. You know, as soon as we feel comfortable and settled and, hey, this is when we're going, you know, we're going. I think the good news, Tony, for the March date with the relaunch of the training materials is that, again, barring something completely random event, and more than likely in February, we would know if we're starting to get delayed again, right? Because our critical fixes would start getting thrown off schedule. The good news about that March date is, you know, your training materials are really going to have, by the end of February, all of those updates completed and ready to roll. So you will, even if the date gets pushed, you're likely going to have training materials that are pretty solid. But I hear you about, well, if we're going to move from May to August or September, you know, well, then I wouldn't want to start training until July or August. So we absolutely hear you. That is a great note. And if we settle on that go, no go date sooner, we will absolutely get that information out to you guys. So thank you, Tony. Great feedback and something we definitely hear you there. So good stuff all the way around. Happy New Year, Gene. I think it's Patisel. I hope I said that right. Gene, I'm sorry. I try to say everybody's name so you can get a little recognition that you're asking a question. But Gene has a question that Lisa would like to answer.
And I'm going to answer it, but I like to, whenever it pulls up policy, do this number and refer to my friend Barb. You can, so the tool is, it's an electronic platform, right? So you can absolutely receive electronic responses in the tool. However, just like you're doing today, your solicitation, the documents that you attach are what tells your bidders how to respond to your solicitation. You include instructions in that right now. So if you want to receive paper responses, you would just follow that and make sure that's clear in your documentation that you attach to your public posting.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. And then Catherine Babeau, I think I'm saying that right. Again, I hope I'm not messing up everybody's names, but Happy New Year to you, Catherine. And Lisa would like to take this question.
Oh, I forgot I did 2 in a row. I try and relieve Shane a little bit. He's doing such a good job. I don't have to say people's names. So for example, let's see if this has already been asked. I haven't gotten to it yet. Will EVA allow for more than one window to be open at the same time? If you do that now, it will log you out. It will. I'm excited to tell you that it does allow you to have 2 browser tabs and windows open at the same time while you're logged in. I would encourage you, if you have access into UAT right now, into that environment, to test it and try it out for yourself. That's a really great question, but we do have the testing environment open and available to our user community. So you can go in and you can actually explore and find out some of these questions too for yourself. So we have an extended period of time really that you have access to be able to compare what you're currently doing in production right now in our testing environment. I cannot encourage you enough to go in and take advantage of this opportunity, because I know for me, it's nice to be able to have them side by side to figure out, okay, this is what I'm doing here, and translate what I'm doing in the new platform. With that being said, now is also the time. If you see something, say something. Don't assume we found it. You guys know your business processes and are probably doing stuff we don't even realize. And so we have the form still out there on the EVA transition page where you can report issues that you find in the testing environment. We also still have our on-demand support sessions available from 9 to 11 Tuesdays and Thursdays, where if you have questions about the system, you can actually come in and we'll have COVID team members, our account executives are in there, our EVA team members are in there to support you and answer some of these questions along the way, beyond just even these user group sessions that we're having right now too. So
great. Thanks, Lisa. Happy New Year, Letha Dickerson. Will the training materials that were posted previously be replaced totally? I hate to use the word replaced. The learning journeys, the modules, how they're constructed and what each module physically is. It's not a replacement, but, and I might be speaking a little out of turn. I don't know that it's every single module, but there are updates happening across the board in every one of the learning journeys. And I would call it updates, new screenshots, additional guidance, removing some of the guidance, because some of it, the one I think of is the requisition header. When it told you to do a requisition, it was like, you got to fill this in and fill this in. Some of that stuff's defaulted for you. You don't have to fill in every single, it was like, well, fill in where you're from. Well, you don't have to do that every time, so some of that, and getting the screenshots, if we moved fields or updated a label, getting the screenshots and things updated. The path, the modules, everything like that are the same. And I just saw a chat come in. So now we have to retake pathways. Not necessarily. No. Sarah Lewis just sent me a chat that said over 90% of the assets will be refreshed. So, and again, it's really a refresh. And I want to stress, if you finished and got through some of the pathways and you understand, you're like, this helped me, I get it. If we do a refresh, that doesn't mean you have to take everything again. It doesn't. Training is about getting the concepts. It's not going to be perfect, right? If you understand where to log in, where to fill in screens, how to add an item, that's not changing. How to issue a sourcing event, how to do an evaluation, how to do an award, how to do receiving. Those high-level basic concepts aren't changing, but we are taking this opportunity to make it better reflect what it's going to look like in production. But the general skill of what it takes to do transactions in this new platform, if you've already been through the pathways, you got it. All right. it's down. So it's not like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to retake everything. Not necessarily.
It's just like your VCA certification. If you think of it this way, let's keep it simple to things that we all know and have are your VCO certification. You've gone through the policy once, you've read it, you took the test, you've passed, you're good to go. It is your responsibility to stay updated. And if you have questions, you can sure do a refresher course on it or review the material again, and that will still be there. So it's that same kind of concept that you can go back and circle to it. If you still feel like you're struggling in an area, go back, refresh.
Yeah, I mean, you might put the VCA and VCO. I'll use VCO because I'm guessing a lot of you guys out here have VCOs. So you go through the VCO training. The manual is the way it is. You take the test and you become VCO certified. And then Barb and Kelly through DPS, they issue a PIM. Well, do we make you go back and take the test again? Not necessarily, but do we expect you as a professional to make sure you understand the PIM and maybe look through it? And by that, I don't mean you have to take the training again. Maybe you just pop into UAT and make sure that, oh, okay, well, they moved this field or, and guys in the existing EVA, we do bi-monthly updates, or we did. We're not doing them as frequently now because we're getting ready to move to a new platform. Does that mean we made you go through the email training every time we we maybe send a note out, this is what we did, but again, the training for the transition is really focused on teaching you the core concepts. And trust me, guys, if you went through it, the core concepts are covered by the existing training. We're just taking this time to make it better and make it better reflect what we have. So great.
I think that there's been a couple of nice comments. So if you aren't following the chat or didn't see those nice comments that have been made, Tony Jordan definitely made one that, there's going to be a list of updates available for the trainers. If you have materials, you can share that down. You can decide what your end users need. And I think that's the beauty of the Train the Trainer program, is that everybody could choose to do it a little bit different. And we have the ability as the Train the Trainer group for you guys to share that information amongst yourselves. And if you do have questions and there are repeat questions that come up, then we'll make sure that we address things.
Great. Good stuff. And then Letha did have a follow-up that I'll just cover real quick. And I know we're a little over time. So basically we should replace the guides that we may have saved with the new and upcoming guides. Absolutely. So if you've saved off anything, if you've, captured something, you want to, at the end of February, you want to grab those things. Sarah Lewis also mentioned she's not going to have a list of the specific changes, but she will tell us and her team what module or what area changed. So that way you could quickly say, oh, this guide change or this, oh, I need to grab the new one. So you'll know at a high level, what modules and what areas may have had an update. So great one there. And then we got one more question that Lisa wanted to take for us. And again, I'm sorry we're running a little over here.
Oh, where's my Q&A box? There it is. It says, if paper responses are indicated in the solicitation, do the responses have to be entered in order to award? As of right now, and the way the UAT is working, no, they do not. However, I think that as a best practice, you need to put the information into the system because EVA is doing more for you than just a bulletin board of your award information. Yes, that's the legislation requirement, but put EVA to work for you. It can help you with putting together a bid tab, even if it's a paper response, and pulling that information together for you and helping you along the way. We're going to be able to do analysis for you. You'll be able to do it yourself. There's so much that the system will be able to do for you beyond what you're experiencing in the current platform that you are going to miss out on opportunities if you don't put information in. So I definitely encourage that. I think it is a best practice and something that I imagine moving forward at some point, we could look at how we're doing that differently in the existing platform too. But also test it, play with it now. I think you'll see it's pretty easy to do and that you will like it. And I encourage you to also test electronic responses. Get a supplier account set up and go in as a supplier and enter a response. work on your business processes to adjust to that now. Something like COVID happens again, you don't have to pause how you're doing business. You just keep going. Talk to some other organizations that are getting electronic responses, your account executives. I'm just a big proponent of it. I can't say anything more. Just hit the mute button on me, Kim.
Well, I just want to thank our lovely panelists today for participating, and all of our lovely users out there who participated and joined us for our first user group. I think that this was full of information. I just cannot say enough about the fact that a lot of your answers are in the transition newsroom. So please pop over there and explore the updated conversion roadmap, important dates that you need to know, the other documents that are there to support you. And if you have questions about training, go to your entity trainer, your train the trainer, or your DPS account executive. And if you have specific things like have come up today, make sure that you go back and you make contact with your account executive so they can help guide you through those specific things that affect you, your job, your entity. We look forward to hosting another user group in February, so be on the lookout for those future dates. We will go ahead and try to plan those through our go live date, and maybe even for the rest of the year. I feel like we can just go ahead and get those on our schedule and calendar and have them out there with those links for people to reference and save the dates. Thank you all so much again. Barb did share in the chat how to find your account executive if you're not familiar with how to find them. And just thank you again. Happy 2022. We are looking forward to May 2nd. You guys have a great rest of your day.